Hello, and welcome to Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, a podcast to facilitate connections and illuminate real solutions to common problems within the parking and mobility industry. I'm Brian Wolf, President and CEO of Parker Technology, and I'll be your host as we speak with parking professionals from across the industry at all levels to uncover tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks. Parking a car. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. Rather than focusing on one individual, I'm going to triple your pleasure by bringing together a group of parking marketing experts, say that 10 times fast, to share their perspective on the importance and difficulty in driving demand and creating an awesome brand for parking operators. So these three individuals have formed what they're now calling themselves as the Parketing Collective. And they're inviting any individual whose role is marketing in the parking industry to join the organization. Today, we'll talk about cracking the branding nut, tactics for developing a killer brand. So my guests today are RJ Giuliano, the Senior Vice President, CIO, and now CMO for Parkway Corporation. Sarah Becker, the VP of Marketing for a.k.a, and our very own Heidi Barber, VP of Marketing for Parker Technology. So on the show today, RJ Giuliano joined Parkway Corporation in February of 2016 as Parkway's CIO. And then in 2020, he was promoted to the position of CMO. I want to get into that a little bit. And then finally, he was promoted this year in 2021 to Senior Vice President of Parkway. He's responsible for the innovative integration of industry-leading technology, marketing and customer experience, strategy, product development, and operations company-wide. That's a no small job. Mr. Giuliano has over 30 years of business leadership and consulting experience, specializing in technology strategy, media and marketing, operations, team development, and business processes. In short, he helps to create environments where people want to work and customers and partners enjoy doing business. In addition to several boards, being a member of several boards, RJ also serves on the finance committee as the chairman of the investment committee for Tech Impact, a technology nonprofit. Hopefully that's a mouthful, RJ.
That was a mouthful. And the only thing in there is creating places people want to work and customers and partners want to do business. That's all that matters here today, Brian. Nice job.
Yeah. Thank you. Sarah Becker has 15 years of experience in developing programming for demand generation, brand awareness, and customer acquisition for fast-growing B2B tech companies in a variety of industries, including e-commerce, prop tech, and mobility. Today, as a.k.a.'s VP of Marketing, she leads the growth strategy execution for showing, not just telling, the outcomes of a.k.a.'s work for parking operators and their technology partners. When she's not parketing, Sarah likes to make pasta, interesting, study French, and accumulate tattoos and explore unfamiliar places. She is a member of NPA's 40 Under 40. Sarah, welcome to Harder Than It Looks.
Thank you.
And then our third member is our very own Heidi Barber. Heidi has a decade of B2B marketing experience with expertise at implementing marketing automation processes, developing effective inbound strategies, adeptness at establishing and growing a brand, and creative execution in the areas of lead nurturing, content creation, social media management, and trade show event marketing. So Heidi's been with us at Parker for over 5 years, and during that time, she's played an essential role in the exponential growth of Parker's client base, building a strong brand and expanding penetration in the parking market. Heidi is also a member of NPA's 40 Under 40 crowd and is also on the steering committee for Women in Parking. Heidi, welcome to Harder Than It Looks.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So I'm super excited to get this group together, which is exactly why we made the decision to make this a segment one thing, because you all have come together to form what you're calling the Parketing Collective. What I would like to hear from you is, what is the Parketing Collective and why did you think it was important to create?
That's actually the first mention of the Parketing Collective. We're going to be launching in a couple of months. So we're actually next month, we're super excited. So the Parketing Collective is a group of parking marketing professionals And we're out to amplify and elevate the voices, visions, and talents of parking and marketing professionals. So we're here to seek out and shine a light on the diversity of incredible experiences and perspectives within all the passionate people who work in parking, who are responsible for brand, go-to-market initiatives, and just generally powering those engines for their companies. So we're super excited about that.
Okay. Sounds like something that we need. RJ, anything to add from your perspective on the Parketing Collective?
Yeah, Sarah hit it beautifully. And if you look at it, it goes to one of the themes you hit on in this podcast, Brian, is we have, whether it's corporate, business to consumer, or business to business, there are so many layers here, and to really call out the professionalism, the depth that's required here, and provide a place for parking and marketing professionals to really network and connect and elevate each other's game.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Heidi, filling any gaps there?
So for me, when I first heard this idea, I was super enthusiastic because I believe Sarah and I have been talking about this for a while, how marketers within parking are a little harder to come by. And we have a unique job that not everybody understands or appreciates. And so any organization that's going to take the mic and amplify what it is that we're doing, I'm all about that. So I was 100% on board when they came to me with this idea, and really excited to get it going and bring our group together and make something big of it.
Yeah. So for my part, I've been in the industry 8 years, and I was, quite frankly, really surprised at how hidden marketing was. I'll say it that way. Maybe that's the nice way to say it. Right. I came from an IT background, or I started a cloud computing company in 2006, and it really all was about marketing. And it was all about how we created demand that made sense for us, because we spent a lot of time searching for the right customer, and we had to use the right words to flesh out the right customer, because we could kiss a lot of frogs and talk to the wrong person. In marketing, or at least in parking, we have a bit of an advantage because we know who our customers are, but I don't know that there are a lot of organizations, and we'll get into this in one of the questions, that there are more organizations that don't do marketing or do it poorly in parking, in my view, than there are that do it really well. I think there are several examples. Obviously, the companies represented here, I think, do it well. And it is a killer app if you get it right. And so I'm actually a little confused why more don't do it better. RJ, I'd like to pick on you quickly because you have a very diverse background and you came into Parkway as the CIO. I'm really curious, how does one then move from a CIO to accumulating a CMO title? And how did Rob and the organization look at your talent and decide that you needed both titles?
Good question. Thanks, Brian. And this is actually the second organization in which I've done that. I previously at a REIT had done a very similar thing. So part of it is, you hit on it, there's a little bit of a greenfield in marketing. Not everybody focuses resources like they should in the space. So there was space to move. We didn't have a marketing function. The second, probably as or more importantly, there's a lot of linkage between IT and marketing, that it's increasingly digital. It's good. Yeah. Relationships are important. Vendor partner relationships are important. Both have to see the whole playing field within an organization to know what is it we're doing, what's the strategy, what we're trying to deliver, and what are the customer profiles that we're trying to deliver to. So there's a lot of overlap. Now, admittedly, I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. So it's not about me trying to be in and be the creative. It's more about, do I get great people around me? And it goes back to the whole founding the Parketing Collective. Yeah, I'm in a room with a Heidi or a Sarah or somebody like that. And that kind of complementary skill set is really nice to have around. So it's go in, fill that gap, be complementary, and build upon that. And there was an opportunity there that we saw and we took advantage of.
Yeah, actually, when you lay it out that way, and then when I think about your background of and the digital transformation of parking, the marriage between all of the digital pieces that you have to put in place in parking, and then the ability to tell your customers how you do it, why you do it, makes perfect sense. Heidi, next thing you know, you're going to be the CIO at Parker.
Oh,
Okay, maybe I'll just leave you in. Maybe I'll just.
I think my unofficial Salesforce admin title that I've been wearing for
Yeah.
5 years, RevOps, kind of sales ops goes along with it.
Yep. Yeah, no question. All right. So you've got the Parketing Collective. You want others to join because, as Ethan Glass, the CEO of Accra, is famous for saying 1 + 1 = 4. So I truly believe that. Bouncing ideas off of each other is great. Parking, actually, that's one of the things that parking does really well, in my opinion, is we share. Obviously, the competitors are a little squeamish. There's lots of good sharing that goes on in parking. My first question is, do parking operators, do they really need a distinct brand? And what's the drive behind a distinct brand? And when in the end, somebody's probably choosing parking for location as much as anything.
Mhm.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I can kick us off. So one thing we talk a lot about at Parker is the customer journey, and just in general, actually, in marketing. And you mentioned the digital transformation. People are looking for parking now on their phones, and it's not just about location, because I will actually speak from my own experience. Parking is stressful to me, and I'm in parking. I'm sure that resonates with a lot of people, but I'm when I'm going downtown for an event or something, I'm looking ahead of time to see where I'm going to park. And so the process has gone from being much more location based to actually like who's showing up on Google and who has the best reviews and all of that, like best prices and the aggregation of all of that to find parking and reserve parking before they actually get to the place of where they're going. And so because of that's where I think marketing and branding and all of that comes to play, is because the competition is much more and people are much quicker to pull out their phones and put a bad Yelp or Google review if they have a horrible experience. And then if you don't have many reviews and that's one of a few, then that really brings down your rating, and that could impact business and revenue and all of those things that as an operator are important and you don't want.
RJ, Sarah, any other thoughts around that? Obviously, that's where you live, right, RJ?
Absolutely. And Sarah's probably going to build on some of these topics too. Let's look, differentiation is one of the holy grails of any marketing. Particularly, like you said, people don't park as a destination. They park as part of the journey. Heidi hit upon that. And so if you've got multiple locations, multiple choices that are somewhat comparable, how do you make people understand that you have better people, better process, better technology? Their experience with you is going to be better than all the other options. How do you get that message across? And even a deeper layer behind that is, we want great people in our teams. How do you, not just from a parking customer point of view, get that? How do you get people to look and go, hey, Accra, Parker, Parkway, you're a premium place to work because I understand your brand message. I understand the people, process, and technology you have are better. And I want to be part of that regardless of what the product is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with RJ in that. I think that brand is often an essential function for employee retention and recruitment. So when you think about, I think in general, when people think about marketing, they're thinking about your visual identity or your slogan, your logo, your website. But in actuality, marketing is the connective tissue within your entire organization. So when you think, like just going back to what RJ said about moving into a marketing role from a CIO role, that seems very intuitive and intentional to me, because marketing is touching product and taking new features to market. Marketing is touching your customer acquisition team if we're looking on like a brand building function, right? Marketing is touching sales, like in terms of sales enablement and the message and the consistency you're getting out to the market. So I would say your brand is really important, because that's how you are fostering trust and familiarity, which improves perception. So if you're looking at that from a B2B or a B2C perspective, you're like, listen, my brand marketing campaigns may not have the immediate attributable return of the other digital campaigns I'm running, but ultimately fostering that trust and familiarity means that the prospects coming in are more qualified and they cost less money to acquire. So I think a brand is really important, both a B2B and a B2C brand. And I would say the parking operators absolutely should be thinking about that and investing in it and delivering on that promise that they're making to the market.
You hit on a key point there, Sarah, and Heidi is as well. elevating ourselves beyond transactional to relational.
Mhm.
Whether it's with employees, with customers, whoever, that's the elevation there that is really important. And one of the keys on the Parketing Collective, we're trying to get everybody into that relational connection as opposed to just a transactional connection.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that was
Unfortunately, I am a man with a hammer in my hand and I see everything through a sales lens. I'm like, what can I sell? Marketing, sales. Heidi knows that better than most. So what you all are illuminating for me is that there are other aspects to the brand and to the experience that we're creating, not the least of which is for our people to feel proud about the company that they work for, and then to attract talent. I can say without a doubt, the brand that Heidi and her team have created is propelling the impression that we are leaving in parking. And it is a positive impression. And to not just think about it through I got my sales binoculars on. What can I sell today? Thank God there are other people that are worried about other facets of the business. Thankful for that. All right. So then I wrote a note to myself because, of course, this podcast is called Harder Than It Looks. So what is harder than it looks when it comes to marketing in either for your company or in the parking industry? I'll toss this out to anyone who wants to take a crack at it.
oh man, there's a lot.
I think this is an easy question. Yeah,
Right.
this is an easy question to answer. Heidi, you start, and I'm sure we all have that
You'll fill in.
Yeah.
Well, as we
Yeah.
do a revenue summit every year, and I'm sure as anybody on our team who sat through our marketing presentation can attest to, there is a lot that goes into marketing behind the scenes. As the common misconception, marketing is not just advertising, all right? Like that is a very tiny piece of what we do. Even people outside of parking or industries any industry that they don't know marketing. But I would say consistency and also just like building that strategy.
The marketing piece, we have an operation and so it's on-site experience. It's the look and feel. It's the cleanliness. Did the pay station work? Did the customer service answer the call? There are all these things that stack in. And Sarah hit on it before you. If it's just the logo and the colors, you're going to lose immediately. We have we have so many touch points with our parking consumer, if you're doing managed accounts or JVs with your partners there's so many of those touch points that all have to work together. And that's part of the complexity here. It isn't just, hey, create a pretty widget, put it on a shelf and light it well in a retail situation. And there's so many things out of our control, destinations, because we're part of that journey. So it's all these things that are out of your control that you're trying to line up to really deliver an exceptional experience and an exceptional brand message, and being on top of this concept. That for me is the fun part, but it's also the complexity hard part for me.
Hopefully this isn't boring for viewers that we all just completely agree with each other. But if you've ever heard the term like marketing programming or like marketing campaigns, like marketing campaigning, I would say the hardest part about marketing is that nothing lives in a vacuum. Like you're going to an industry event and you've got this booth set up, and that is part of your marketing initiative, is having this high impact booth that attracts traffic. But like thinking about all of the other channels and processes that are activated that are related to that booth, it's like marketing's role in creating awareness ahead of time, marketing's role in reaching out to key accounts, like people you want to meet at the booth. And then at the booth, you've got a little QR code on your signage that takes people to a destination landing page, and you can track all those touch points. So setting up that attribution model, like being able to measure the actual ROI in your marketing efforts, because Heidi, RJ, y'all know, marketing ain't cheap, right? Like you got to spend money to make money. And if you're a marketer going to bat for that budget, you better be able to prove the ROI on that. And like at Okra, and when I was at Spot Hero and every company that I worked at, the ultimate goal was proving the ROI. Like marketing powers the top of the pipeline. So who are we bringing into the pipe? Are those people qualified? And then, oh my gosh, marketing is working with sales to help. What does a qualified lead look like? Right? Like, how much is that person worth? Like, how are we going to retain them? Like, all of that whole synergy through the funnel, I think, is really difficult too. You hear a lot about, like sales and marketing, and in my experience, it's not like that, but it's just two very different ways of approaching how to fill that funnel. So cohesion there can be a little tricky as well.
We talk about that all the time.
Heidi?
And that's exactly where I was going to head, Sarah, was attribution. That's where I was going to go, was attribution, and knowing the mix of all of the different channels. And to your point, the campaign, the digital strategy that you have, what is working, what isn't, where do you pour not just money, but also the time and energy, and especially with content, right? Because content's the underpinning of all of your digital marketing strategy that you're doing. And so I actually think outside of attribution, which is really tricky, and anybody that you ask that's in marketing or sales or revenue would tell you that attribution is really hard. But the other thing is breaking through the noise and creating content and messaging that actually resonates with your audience. And doing that consistently enough that you're touching and connecting with those people that you want to work with at the right time when they have a problem that needs to be solved. And I tell my team all the time, we can't say our value prop, or we can't say whatever this particular thing is enough times, because 98% of people didn't pay attention to it the first 10 times we did it. And as we know from looking in our CRM and all the touch points that it takes to land a customer, it's dozens. Like, it's emails, and it's social posts, and it's seeing them at 10 different shows and inviting them to happy hours and all of these things that we do. It's the combination. And so how are we messaging that in a clear and concise way that isn't marketing speak?
That's brilliant, Heidi. It's discipline. Like, marketing requires a lot of discipline. It's an art and a science. I think people will be surprised how much math goes into marketing. Like, there are, I personally love all of the creative elements in creating the brand and creating the content. I come from a copywriting and content background, but like, ultimately a powerful marketing engine is not, it's looking at the numbers. It's being disciplined about tracking all those touch points, about understanding how long a sales cycle is. And unfortunately, you can Google benchmarks. You can do that. It's actually a good place to start. But building your own suite of benchmarks and understanding what good performance looks like for you is a really big challenge for a marketer. I think that Heidi, especially working with you all the time, is supernaturally good at. And it's something that you have to be good at to be a marketing leader.
Yep. And Brian, to draw you in and leap off with Heidi and Sarah have said, it's something in which we do fail sometimes. That's why we have to have discipline. We have to measure it. That's why A/B testing exists. So it's something in which there's a science in there. And like any science, there are experiments, some of which produce expected results, others which don't. And you have to be ready to pivot on that. So it's not 100% success. It never has been. It's just a lot easier for us to measure than it was in our parents' and grandparents' generation when you were taking newspaper ads and billboards to do the same thing.
And the little clip. In some ways it's harder, in other ways it's easier, right? Because the digital piece, you can leave digital trails and pick up those bits along the way, but then you've got to have the tools to be able to measure it. And then you have to have the wherewithal to pay attention. I'll put a point on the piece, one of the pieces that felt like it had consensus, and that is, and I've heard this, Heidi's heard me say this a million times, a brilliant marketer who is a mentor of mine told me that a bad marketing strategy executed consistently is way better than a perfect marketing strategy executed inconsistently. So we talk a lot about just trying to be consistent and trying to obviously we're trying to put the best content out there we can, but we have to be consistent about it. We've got to touch these folks on a regular basis because it's not straightforward, the ways they get to us and then the times they need us. I come from a pharma background where we talked a lot about reach and frequency. We were touching physicians every 3 weeks, or at least I was, because we just never knew when the next patient that was going to walk in that would need what I was selling. And so I think we're executing the same sorts of things. Okay, so now I'm going to put you all on the spot. We've talked about campaigns and all the complexities of it. I would like, because the podcast is really about tips and tricks, right? We're trying to educate these folks and help them do their jobs better. So I'll put you on the spot and ask you for one of the tactics that you found to be the most very effective, not the most effective, but a very effective tactic, something that you tried, an experiment that you tried, or something that you're doing that you think consistently returns a better than average result. I'll start, Sarah, I'll start with you because you're on the top right. I'll put you on the spot first. What have you executed? What thing is foundational to what you do to create demand or brand, which you can pick your favorite?
It's funny how everyone's perspectives are different because I am not in the top right for me. It's important to account for a diversity of perspective. I would say that particularly in parking, which is a very relationship driven industry.
Yeah, for sure.
The best thing that you can do, and I think this is a general principle of marketing, is empathy through interaction and leading with trying to make a genuine connection, is marketing on an account based or like smaller scale level. And I think that as you get to know somebody and you have conversations with them and you learn about how they approach growing their business and what their actual goals are and what do they want as a person, when you develop that connection, it's not about writing all those things down and then crafting the perfect campaign to make them feel some kind of way, but it's rather, I understand where we're going together and I can reach out to you and connect with you in a way that has actual results for you that mean something for you as a person. Like, I'm as big of a fan as retargeting campaigns and like digital ads and like firing on all cylinders as anybody else in this room. That stuff is fun. It is energizing and it works, right? But in parking in particular, like, I produce a lot of content. I'm lucky enough to work with a lot of the trade magazines and the wonderful people there. And just partners I really value, like working with them on an article or an interview or helping to elevate their profile or talk about the exciting things they're doing that I have the privilege of understanding because I'm working with them. Like those sort of really meaningful campaign moments are satisfying and very impactful in parking, is my experience. So
Yeah.
Okay.
that was a long way of saying know somebody and care.
Yeah.
And go out of your way to foster that connection with them.
Yeah. And segment the market down, speak to small groups in a personal way. Okay.
Or individual accounts. Yeah. Individual accounts, individual markets, individual verticals. I think that I've seen a lot of success with that.
Okay. All right. Heidi, you're the next on my wheel go round here.
So what I was going to say is one of the first things that I did when I got to Parker was establish the brand, and as an exercise for operators, for vendors in the parking industry, anyone that's doing marketing or branding for a company, is what's the core of who you are? Why do you exist? And how are you bringing that to market? And is that clear? Is it obvious? Is your value prop obvious? And then once you've established that and that's your baseline, I think one of the biggest things that we did, which, by the way, doesn't really have much cost to it, it's more time than anything, is thought leadership, right? So getting Brian a column in Parking Today, starting to post on social media, and really coming at it from how is what we do as a company helpful to the industry? What is our purpose in the industry? Where do we fit? And then how can we start getting plugged in different places and sharing whatever knowledge or information that we have, the expertise that we have, not in a salesy promotional way, but here's how we want to help, and becoming pervasive in that way. And obviously that looks different depending on what company you're in. So that's probably a bit different for an operator, but even if you're thinking about an operator selling to, then you could probably speak to this more so, RJ, back to your differentiation point. Like, how are you differentiated to help in a certain way, whatever that is? And then building out that strategy of, all right, for us, it looks like the emails, the social campaign, the showing up at trade shows and having presentations that aren't talking about our product or service, but customer experience and how that's so important for the industry. And oh, by the way, when we started doing that 5 years ago, no one was talking about customer experience in parking. Okay. I just want to render that explicit. Now everyone's talking about it. So I don't know that we can necessarily take credit for that, but I might take a little credit for that because that was not a thing.
What was 5 years ago? What was 5 years ago?
2019.
2018? Okay, I'm going to push back on that one. We can take this offline.
Okay. Oh, we got a little Donnybrook on the show here.
Hey,
Okay.
how was that?
Heidi and I are very...
How was the parking experience a year or two after Brian had been talking about customer experience in his column? I don't know. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, yeah. So thought leadership.
Please, viewers, realize we're very good friends.
Yeah, it's
establishing your brand. Yeah, and I could go on about branding just in general for a long time. But the old days, I think, Brian, I've talked to you about this with what is your story arc as a company. Nobody wants to be sold to. This isn't the 80s where the used car salesman tactic works anymore. How are you fitting in with what your customers care about? And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, good. Okay. RJ, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. You've got a completely different perspective from the operator's perspective.
Yeah, but I love what Heidi and Sarah are saying. And I think it's completely, first of all, we do have a director of customer experience in my team, Heidi. Yes, customer experience is important. But to build upon what they said is people and community. What we get the most engagement is we are an organization of great people doing great things. So whether it's in the workplace or in their community, talking about the people who really make up that brand, make up that culture for us has been really important because we live and work here. Not that a good tech company doesn't, but we are on the ground physically. We're walking to work, driving to work, whatever to work. We're in the neighborhood. And so we're an integral part of that entire neighborhood experience as coworkers, as neighbors, whatever it may be. So talking about our people, that gets the most engagement, the most activity. And sometimes it's what they're doing in nonprofit or in school or whatever. Sometimes it's look at the great things we're doing together. We're building a building, we're opening a new location, whatever it is, but that focus on people and the communities in which we live and work. And those communities are, yes, the geographic communities, but as witnessed by the Parketing Collective, it's also the industry communities in which we work. We're part of these various, dimensions of community and engaging fully in those and telling the story of the people who underlie who you are as a company and who you are as a member of the community.
Yeah. So you hit a nerve because Heidi will have the stats. When we put out LinkedIn posts about our people, they outperform any other post by a factor of at least 2, maybe 3. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So you're right. There's a human interest element to it. And then if I could add one back to LinkedIn for a second, one of the things that I think has created some significant positive momentum for Parker is the program that Heidi and Kate have put together around our LinkedIn posts, our momentum posts. So people see that we just won a deal in Washington and then California and then Texas and then Missouri and Florida. And it creates an impression, right? People can see that we're winning business and there's real momentum there. So if you aren't on LinkedIn and you're not spending time consistently pumping information about the company into LinkedIn, I think that would be the one pearl that I would add that sort of overlays all of the tactics that you were talking about here.
We're also working in threads and some of the, LinkedIn clearly is a channel. Facebook is clearly a channel. We're actually experimenting in threads, which is fun because it's a little bit of a wild west where you can try things and there aren't a lot of rules there yet.
Yeah. Okay. Have we been in threads yet, Heidi?
No, I'll be honest. I don't even know what threads is. I think you're way cooler than me, RJ, because I've never heard of it. So.
Well,
RJ is cooler
that's
than
a new
both of us.
phrase. That's a new phrase in the English language. Way cooler than you, Heidi. That's a new phrase in the English language.
Brian, I think you brought up a really cool point just to piggyback on that, how important that actually is, the consistent LinkedIn posting. One thing I would encourage people to do if you're getting started with your marketing program or if you want to ramp it up, like something that is relatively low resource and incredibly low cost and ticks all of the boxes of your people, your executive visibility, your SEO, your PR is digital PR. Like digital PR as defined as there are always all these cool things that are happening in the parking industry. You can add your unique perspective on that or feature an executive perspective. And what you're effectively doing there is really smart marketing because you're piggybacking on something that may have more like SEO juice or more domain authority than you. You are weighing in the community and adding like a unique perspective that represents who you are as a business and what your business's journey is. And also you're just fostering connection and engaging with the industry as a whole. And that's something that I have a really good friend, Tim Maloney. Maybe some of you know him.
Yeah,
Who's
sure.
parketing,
We all know
who's like parking. I'm saying parketing every time I say parking, by the way, which is awesome. Don't cut that out. Who his like industry momentum posts get a huge amount of engagement because it's so useful. Like this one little touch point where you can tap in and learn all this stuff. And I would say that there are so many people in my network whose perspectives on industry happenings are incredibly valuable to me. I didn't think of it that way. If you host that on your blog, SEO, get that backlink, get that sharing. So that's just my tip. Just in terms of something that's worked well for me, I would highly encourage people to do that.
Yes, blogging.
Awesome.
That was the other thing I was going to say that I forgot from, and you guys have probably heard of this acronym that I just recently learned about, the EAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, what Google and LinkedIn use as for their algorithm for what content to push to the top. So if you want to rank on Google, then make sure you're blogging relevant content that is not all sourced from ChatGPT, that someone's actually writing, because they're going to start dinging that. Hot tip.
Okay, so will you say it again? Because I'm guessing a listener, if they're on the treadmill like I would be in the morning listening to this, I'm not going to catch it. So what? EAT.
EAT. Yeah.
Okay.
Experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. It's Google's framework for helpful, reliable content. And it's what they use to determine what is coming to the top of the search results for certain keywords. And so if you're wanting to rank on Google for parking operator in downtown Indianapolis, right, then are you writing blog posts that will have your website pop up? And I think, again, for operators, that's a little different because you want to make sure that your locations are on Google. So that's a different animal than like what we would be doing, for instance. But yeah, I know that Sarah and I have a shared mutual customer that talks a lot about like SEO and parking and how important it is. And that, again, that's probably another rabbit
Heidi,
hole.
you hit on that, Heidi, is we've invested a lot in claiming our Google Places and our Apple business profiles and making sure those are the small things that cost you very little bit time, but ensure better results, better authority, and the like in those platforms. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I love that. And that's what I call blocking and tackling, right? Do you even show up on Google when someone would go to search parking in Philadelphia, right? It seems like a simple thing, but then that leads me to RJ, my question about so benchmark us for how big is your team? So a parking operator's listening to this and their head's about to melt because they're thinking about all the facets of marketing and campaigns and all this stuff. Tell us about your team. What does your team look like? And if you had more resources, what else would you invest in from a marketing perspective?
Good questions. So it's part of my job. You listed the things I do. It's part of my job. And I have a great analyst, Jocelyn, who everybody else on the call knows, who is also part-time as a marketing analyst, who really handles the day-to-day. And that's one of the other kind of takeaways here. We have really good external partners on PR, social media, on a lot of these things. And you don't have to build a big team. Remember, you probably, if you have a core, you want some of those outside expertise and perspective. They're keeping up, they're watching our channels, they're helping us with ad campaigns, helping us with marketing campaigns. And so you don't have to build a really large team. I think it's important to keep the core in-house because it goes back to what everybody's been saying here, understanding your culture, understanding the big picture of your company. You want a core there that can do that, but you can go into the market and find really good partners to work with in that space. Additionally, because so many of us, parking is an interrelated ecosystem. Big words for none of us is doing it alone. We have parking systems, we have things like Parker, and you want to leverage each other and you want somebody in-house who's working with that. But we do a lot of co-marketing with our other parties, and that's important as well. My team is extended by our co-marketing partners in the industry, the parking systems, the other providers that we do. And your head doesn't have to explode with a budget. Where I would continue to spend more money is in data and analytics. And that is, but I don't think anybody else here would disagree with that. It comes out of my IT background, but it's the only way to know how you're doing and how to adjust as you go along.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Anything to add to that, Heidi or Sarah?
Yeah. My team now, I have someone she's our content manager. So she's overseeing a lot of our digital channels. And then I also have another person, Courtney, who's actually producing this podcast. She is our events and community manager. So she oversees all virtual and in-person events. So webinar, podcasts, trade shows, and on top of several other things. And so we're like the three-legged stool, which is awesome. When I first started, when we were a much smaller company, it was just me and I was doing all of it. And honestly, it is crazy to think that I was doing all of it, probably not executing it all very well because it was just one person, which I know Sarah can relate to. So if I were to plug in another person or two, definitely looking at a rev ops, sales ops person to help with our CRM and our marketing automation and buttoning up some of those processes and building the automations out. And then honestly, a graphic designer is someone that I've looked at, and then potentially even a product marketer. So I don't know. There's always a lot of work to be done and figuring out that mix of who to have. And then we have a lot of outsourced resources too for video production and our website upkeep and then doing all of our pay-per-click and things like that. So to RJ's point, for sure, do the both having the core in-house and then outsourcing what makes sense.
I think that when we obviously all run pretty lean here, right? Which we have our external partners, we have our support internally. I would encourage people, I get a lot of questions from different companies in the industry that are like, I want to build out my marketing team. Who should I hire? Like I'm starting from the ground up. What's the person I need? And I feel like everybody's first inclination is get a generalist, like get someone who can do anything, like whatever. And that's not a bad suggestion, right? But I think the most methodical approach is to really sit down and look at your business goals. What are you trying to accomplish through your marketing? Is demand generation your top priority? Are you looking more at expanding with existing accounts? Do you really want to build your brand and create that footprint? And to look at marketing by function. Heidi knows this. RJ knows this. Marketing is an ecosystem of specialists for the most part, right? Like you'll find people that can do like content and creative or whatever, but largely the functions are highly specialized. So unless you're investing in like a team of 10 people that are touching every part of marketing and that's their thing that they do every single day, what I would say to look for is the people that are going to propel your business goals forward, like in that moment, like what you need in the immediate short term. Like Akra hired me because I'm fab, no, but because what we needed in that moment was like, we needed to get that brand out there, the executive visibility, our story. Like we're taking this new sort of product to market. What does that look like? What does that mean? We have to talk to everyone and figure out product market fit. So they brought me in because those were the immediate business needs. And that being said, if I were to hire somebody, I think product marketing is the most underrated marketing function out there. I am personally obsessed with that. I will talk about it till the cows come home, which I won't on this podcast because we have other things to talk about. But I think that product marketing and creating that liaison between your engineering and development team and your product team and actually how to translate those features and functionalities to the market is critical, especially now, like RJ and Heidi, you both mentioned this. It's getting harder and harder to create differentiation.
Yep.
Like with all the new stuff, it's very hard to do that. So a product marketer is probably who I would invest in. And also you can't go wrong with a RevOps person. Like they're chef's kiss, like someone you can go in and make your CRM run like a dream. That's, I use, but that, that person's awesome. So that's what I would say about that.
So I'm going to light up parts of Sarah's and Heidi's brain to make them talk about this because we've talked about this once or twice before. But we have 300 brand ambassadors at Parkway because that's about how many employees we have. And one of the best hires you can do is hire and develop great brand ambassadors across the entire company. Brian, you come from sales. We're all in sales. We're also all in marketing. And I know Sarah and Heidi definitely believe in that.
For sure. No question about it. Yeah. If I were to put a sort of a bow on that section, it's really about finding good leaders who then can pull the right resources at the right time. And RJ, I think, I know, in fact, all three of you mentioned, you don't have to have all of that expertise in-house. In fact, I would recommend that you not do that. Frankly, find a good leader and then find good outsourced partners who are really good at what they do and stitch it together. And then when you've got enough content or enough volume, enough work to be done, then you hire full-time people who are good at that, and then supplement everything that you do with outside agencies. There are some that are fabulous that are not really that expensive. You can do it super efficiently, frankly. That's my experience. Okay,
Join
so
the Parketing Collective. Join the Parketing Collective. Yeah.
let's go. All right, well,
Find new resources. Tap other people's expertise. Join.
all that fun stuff. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Since this is a segment 1, I have to go through my lightning round. This is going to be a little bit tricky, so I'll ask you to try and be concise if you can. If you've listened to my podcast before, you'll know what the questions are. If you haven't listened to my podcast before, then you might have to say, okay, let me give it some thought, right? But here are a couple of questions that I ask everyone. What phrase are you known for? In other words, if someone utters a phrase in the office, they know instantly that Sarah said it, RJ said it, Heidi said it. I've tried it out all of mine before. I won't do that. I won't make the poor listeners listen to it again. All right, raise your hand. Who's got it first? If somebody utters a phrase deep in your organization, they know that started it. That came from RJ. What is your phrase? Go ahead, Sarah.
Powerful. I'm always calling everything powerful. If anyone's calling anything powerful within Authorax, actually, when I worked at Spot Hero, the CEO, Mark Lawrence, made me an email address that was powerful@spothero.com because I said it so often. It's like powerful's great. Enthusiasm, like energy, drive, diligence, make it powerful. Yeah, I would say that's fine.
Hilarious. Okay. Who's next?
I'll throw in here, and it's tough to be self-describing. It's either hopefully what's the right thing to do here, or what's the backup plan.
Yes.
Very
Okay.
pragmatic of you, RJ.
You're very pragmatic. Very
It's the IT thing coming out. Exactly.
Yeah.
Very
what's the backup
cool.
plan?
Very cool.
Okay.
All
All right. Good.
I don't
Heidi?
know, Brian. I feel like I should ask you that. What do I say all the time? That's awesome. That's lame. I don't want that to be my.
Okay, so let me think about a Heidi barbarism.
Oh, Courtney just said bonkers. I do say bonkers a lot.
Bonkers. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Courtney. The voice behind the screen. That's fun. Bonkers. Yeah, okay, that sounds
I
Heidi.
don't know that's my catchphrase, but I'll think on that.
Okay. All right, so then the next question is, what is the hardest thing you've ever done? Not parking. We'll get to parking in a second. What is the hardest thing you've ever done? Go ahead, RJ. I can see you've already got it.
Yeah, I guess does raising a 31-year-old son and a 23-year-old daughter count?
Sure.
Yeah. Raising another human being and launching them into the world and knowing that they made it, both the most rewarding and the hardest thing, which probably goes together in everything.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say motherhood and having a natural birth, not to be graphic or weird, but not for the faint of heart.
No, I can imagine.
The hardest thing I've ever done is my husband and I moved from Chicago to New York City the day before the lockdown in 2020. And then spent a summer in New York, just in our 600 square foot Bushwick apartment, just trying to make the most of the city, and marriage survived. It was great, actually, despite the world being horrible. But then we picked up and moved to Philadelphia 8 months later. So I would say that the hardest thing that we went through also led to the best decision, because this is a wonderful city, as RJ knows. Lots of good way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could have said moving was the hardest thing you've ever done, because I tell people all the time, I don't wish moving on my worst enemy. It is, it's just an awful thing to have to move boxes and never ending boxes. Okay. All right. So now let's get to parking. What's the hardest thing about your parking job? We may have talked about some of it later, but go ahead and put a pin in it. What is the hardest thing about your parking job?
I'll throw it in there. It goes back to my answer before. There's so many things you don't control. You have to learn to let go. There's so much you influence and some things you don't even influence, but having all of those things work together, which is also part of the fun and challenge. Yeah. That's the two edges of that sword.
Yeah. You mean the city taxes? You don't control the city taxes and from Parkway?
No, I don't control city taxes, which is a whole episode unto itself, Brian.
Yes, it really is. And I've talked to Rob several times about how they are picking on you guys in the worst way in Philly. And there are probably other places too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Who else? The hardest part about your job, your parking job.
Honestly, this is going to sound like one of those things when you're in an interview and someone asks you, what's your biggest weakness? And you're like, I care too much. But honestly, I think the hardest thing is prioritization. Like there's so much stuff I want to do at any given time. And I'm quite capable of prioritizing it. But sometimes the process, I'm just like, because I just want to do everything. And yeah, I think it's important to take time and sit down and really figure out where you're going to put your resources. But luckily, I have a really good team that can weigh in on what's going to make the biggest business impact. And having those brains around is pretty helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Prioritization. That sounds dead on. All right, Heidi. What's the hardest part of your job? Dealing with me, maybe.
No, you're easy. No, I would say one of the hardest things is, at least now, tracking everything that we're doing and having conversion rates between MQLs and SQLs and attribution and being able to see the full customer journey and which touches are converting someone to an opportunity, all of that, having visibility to what is happening that's working and influencing our efforts and the budget and where do we put more fuel on the fire, so to speak.
More emphasis. Yeah.
That would be.
Yep. Attribution. That's probably the hardest part of your job.
Mm-hmm.
Attributions.
I mean,
get it.
Resource allocation, Heidi, you said it beautifully. And I think that's what I was trying to get at is, actually having the numbers to back up where you want to invest more, whether it's your time or your money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Data is important.
All right. So now we're going to fix your hardest part of your job. If you could wave a magic wand, what one thing would you fix about parking?
This will sound wild. I would clear out some of the bad actors. Some of what we fight is there are a lot of great professional organizations, and then there are a few people with their toe happy or boot happy, or just don't maintain their facilities that I think don't raise the game. Going back to the Parketing Collective, we want to raise everybody's game. And I would like to have some of the people who aren't raising the game, raise their game.
Yeah. Again, what a great answer, because I couldn't agree more. Let's get rid of the bad apples. I won't ask you to name names because that would be rude, but I love it. I love it.
I've got one.
Get rid of the bad actors. That's a great answer. Go ahead, Heidi.
If we could just wave our magic wand and have an API integration with all of the other technology vendors that we want to work with.
Okay.
Also not
that would be fun.
Names, but that would be great. So just, okay, you want to partner? Great.
Mm-hmm. Ding.
Ding.
Love it. Okay. Another good one.
If I had a magic wand, I don't think it would be to change something so much as to just accelerate it, to just really put pedal to the metal on it, is just the de-siloing of data and systems within parking. I think it's so cool how many new technologies are entering the space. And I'm so energized by the appetites of these companies to focus really well on one thing and they'll create partnerships and build the infrastructure for that. But that's changing a pervasive mindset in many ways. And that takes time. So I would like to see, I'm excited to see this accelerate as we all continue to move forward and create these partnerships. When you're excited about something, sometimes you want it to happen right away. So
yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Those are all three great answers. When you're not parking cars, what do you do for fun?
We start a Parketing Collective, apparently.
Apparently. Can't get enough.
I'm a language nerd. I do a lot of reading and all that, origins of languages and the like. That's my decompressed time with my head in deep in a book or in a podcast. So,
Okay. I'll ask you to send me the last book you read, the last good book, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
That's awesome. Okay. Sarah, you were ready to go?
I have several esoteric hobbies. I make kombucha. Anyone in the Philadelphia area, I'm a puppet trivia host. So reach out to me if you want to come to one of my nights. I rate all the questions. I started my sourdough starter this week. I collect postcards and spoons from around the world, which I don't know if that's a hobby, but if I was in my other office, you'd see these insane amount of spoons behind me. And I actually was delighted to learn about RJ. And last time we were all together that you're such an etymology nerd. I do my best to study French. I put a lot of work into it, but it doesn't come naturally to me. That's why this is in English. So.
Yeah. Thank God.
That's
All
the
right.
only
Heidi.
reason.
Yeah. As I said, I'm a mom, so lots of family time and planning birthday parties, and we lead a blended families ministry, which I'm really passionate about. Really involved with our church, and let's see, I'm so bad at the fun hobbies. We recently have started Legoing, which is random as an adult to get into that. I had never put together any sort of like actual Lego kit until a few weeks ago, and it was really fun. But outside of that, I love like interior design and decorating our home and doing things around that. That's my crafty, creative side coming out.
Awesome. Okay. We're coming into the home stretch here. Last question. And so I'm going to take for granted, RJ, that you are super proud of your children. Okay. I'm going to ask you to pick something that is, so we already know you're proud of your children, but let's talk professional. What are you most proud of professionally?
That's actually pretty easy. I've 30 some odd years of spawning other people who've gone on to leadership. I like this light bulb moments where people start to get it. And there are a lot of other great leaders. So I've had the pleasure of working with when they were very young pups up to that point. And whether it's with my kids or with them, seeing other people hit that moment where they've launched and succeeded, moved on. I love when people view me as the bottleneck to their career because they've reached the point that they're ready to catch me.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great answer. Okay. I love that answer. All right, Sarah.
I think that the thing that I'm most proud of is maintaining a consistent or growing appetite for learning how to do things I don't know how to do. It's been a journey throughout my career, like working with different size teams and having certain resources or functions or just like general attitudes within companies about how they view marketing or marketing's role within a company. And a lot of times when you're in that situation, it's necessary to learn different ways of communicating or different processes and just adapt to ways that people hear. And I've worked really hard to improve myself in that regard. And I continue to work very hard at that. So I'm pretty proud of my capacity to be adaptable.
Nice. Okay. All right, Heidi, what are you most proud of?
Yeah, I would say that I'm notorious for staying with companies for a long time because I've been at this one and then the one before this for 6 years and taking a pretty small company and helping grow it to be a much bigger company. And just, I don't know, devouring that and putting strategies in place and building teams. That's been really fun. And I also am pretty proud of being on our leadership team and being so young as well. So not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I don't know. I think that's a kind of a cool accomplishment. And
yeah, it is a cool accomplishment. You can toot your own horn. It's all right. That's the point of it.
You should.
Okay.
You should toot your horn. Yeah.
And when I think about Heidi's first day and where we are today, I'm like, not even close, like night and day. And by the way, we're not done yet, right? We're just getting started. And we're just getting started. So yeah, super fun. Been fun the journey has been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to hand the mic back to you all one last time around the Parketing Collective and allow you to make your impassioned plea for others to join you in this quest that we have to raise our game, get rid of the bad actors, raise our game, and improve the image of parking for everyone. Heidi, I'll start with you. I've been waiting for you at the end with the questions. I'll let you go first around your push for membership into the Parketing Collective. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I would say that if you have someone on your team who is a marketer, then please send them our way. We would love to get them involved. Really, our goal and our heart behind it is not only to bring other marketers together to be a thought tank think tank. I feel like, thank you, think tank of marketing ideas and just.
Well, you could, Parketing Collective, we're a thought tank. I like it.
Yeah. Anyway, sharing ideas and best practices, but also one of our bigger, longer term goals is to share the expertise and really the intention behind marketing with the rest of the industry, as we started off talking about, and the importance of it, how it fits, why it matters, candidly, why everyone should have at least one marketing person on their team, if I had to plug that. So yeah, I think it's twofold to connect us with your marketers and yes, be open to working with us on future projects that we will be announcing.
Be open to learning. Okay. Who wants the peanut butter in the middle and the other side of the bread?
I'll take the peanut butter because Sarah's the closer in the room.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Heidi is dead on. And I guess there are two things I want to amplify. One, this is not about the title on your business card. This is about, do you believe marketing in the parking industry is important? You're welcome to it. It might be sales, it might be marketing, but it might be operations. But anybody who has a passion and interest becoming better at it, we welcome you aboard. The other piece, and we talked about this very intentionally, is the three of us are part of the launch team, but it is a collective. This is not our project. Somebody has to keep things going, but we really do want this to be better than the sum of the parts. And so we want the ideas, we want the leadership and all that. We're just here to facilitate getting everybody in the room, get that going. It is the collective's collective, and that should really go the direction that people see fit.
Awesome. Okay. Closer.
100%.
100%, you two. I'll keep it short. Marketing is a absolutely vital part of the revenue engine of any company. We can do so much with you, for the market, for the customer. We are out. The three of us and the rest of the leadership committee are so passionate about this. Like we love this. And we really want to elevate not just the power of the marketing function and how it can contribute to revenue growth of your company, but the power of the marketing brain. There are so many ideas. The way that we look at the world is exciting, and there's just a lot of opportunity. And again, it doesn't matter what your title is. It doesn't matter if you've been in parking for 35 years or 2 months. If you are excited about this, we want you here because everybody has something to learn and everybody has something to teach. So please join us. I do want to say that our kickoff meeting, just to give a timeline, is May 22nd. So it's coming up fast. So if you do want to join us, please send us an email to hello@parketingcollective.org. And any one of us will see it, or reach out to one of us individually, and we will shoot you an invite. We'll also be unveiling the brand, which has been a group effort, the best possible design by committee experience, I will say, as a former brand consultant. It's been awesome. So please come. We would love to see your face.
Okay. So I'm crossing my fingers, and then Courtney's not cringing that we can actually get this thing cranked out before May 22nd. So it might be a little tough. We might be in the rearview mirror on that, but I'm sure you'll do a lot of other social media beyond that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for your time. We ran a little long. I love running long because then I know that somebody that got to the end really cares about listening to what we have to say. They're not just popping in and popping out because it's whatever, right? This is popcorn. This is a full meal. This is steak and potatoes. So thank you all for hanging in there with me, for having fun, and most importantly, for forming the Parketing Collective, because I think it is critical that this industry do better at that. So with that, I will again thank you, Sarah, RJ, Heidi, for joining me, and I can't wait to see you really soon. Bye for now.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you, Brian.
Welcome back to segment 2 of Harder Than It Looks. As you know, segment 2 is when we expose our listeners to people outside the parking industry who are doing things that are harder than it looks as well, to provide perspective and perhaps to start a little trend to cross over our podcast into the mainstream. We'll see. That sounds ambitious, but we're going to give it a shot. So today on segment 2 is my guest. My guest on segment 2 is Casey Crouse. Casey's day job is to lead account management for a company here in Indianapolis called GoodellNet, a managed services company. And when Casey is not working, he enjoys spending time with his wife, 3 sons, and their black Labrador retriever. But he's so much more than that because he's a proud board member of Riley Children's Foundation. He is also the founder and president of New Shoe Day, an NPO focused on providing new shoes to youth in need across Indiana to empower them to thrive. Now, the reason we're here today is because Nate Spangle introduced us, because Casey is an ultra distance marathon runner. And we thought that sounded harder than it looks. So we thought we'd dive in. But as I pleasantly found out when I was doing my research on Casey, he's a lot more. So Casey, welcome to segment 2 of Harder Than It Looks.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Appreciate the intro. And let's get it out of the way. Shout out to Nate Spangle.
Yeah, for sure. Nate is, so Nate was a segment 2 guest.
Yeah.
We covered Nate and his passion for helping kids and wrestling. And I could relate to Nate. He probably was a wrestler in his previous life. I did not play football beyond 8th grade, but then I coached my son's football team when he was 4th and 5th and 6th grade. And so it takes a lot of work to prepare for that stuff and all of that. And so Nate's a rock star for sure.
He is individual, I've told, has as much energy as I do. And I would actually say he has more. His icon on my phone is that battery emoji, that full green battery emoji. That is Nate Spangle on my phone. And he knows that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Nate's a good guy. Okay, so Nate recommended you. You're an ultra distance runner. Tell me about how you got into it. What's interesting about it? Give us a little perspective on what it takes to be an ultra distance runner.
Oh, yeah. We'll start with how I got into it. I grew up a ball player, competitive young athlete. My older brother, he's an endurance athlete himself, a cyclist, and he gave me one of his old bikes. So when he did that, I actually started with cycling, moved pretty quickly in terms of being committed to it, entered the triathlon game, and eventually I just grew on the passion of love for running and transitioned to solely focus on running and trail running. And although I needed to leave that cycling and swimming behind, there was just too much time commitment there. But I'm one that typically likes to find those limits of the things that I dip my toe in. And with running, it's such a simple sport. You venture out and it's one step in. At times, you just want to see how many steps you can take and where that run can take you. And for me, that has just grew into running longer distances, and I love to be outside. The concept of ultra running, Brian, is anything that's longer than a marathon, but so much about it is the community that you're involved in with it, and then also where it can take you. So I love it for the travel aspect, for the friends and relationships I have in it. And it's a big part of my life right now, but it's not everything, that's for sure. But I do enjoy it tremendously.
Okay, so tell us about the last race you ran, how long it was, whether it was on a road or if you, because they can also do distance like through mountains and over rocks and stuff like that as well. Are you doing both, or do you have a particular flavor that you prefer?
I prefer trails. So yeah, more in wilderness and in nature. I do enjoy those races versus the road running, the local 5Ks, 10Ks, or the city marathon, if you will. Those are fantastic events. I just found such a passion for the trail scene. Enjoy that part of it. The last race I ran would have been last August. So it's been a minute. Do have a pretty solid year ahead of me in terms of races, but last August I was out in Colorado and did a race in the town of Leadville, which was in the mountains. And Leadville, for anyone that's ever been out there, is a special place, incredible place to run.
Yeah. Okay. So how far did you go and how long did it take you? And then we'll get into some of the things that we probably, as a non-ultra marathon runner, I want to hear the things that I don't know about it, the gruesome part of it.
Yeah. So the race was 100 miles. I went 100 miles and it took me just under 30 hours to complete.
Okay. All right. So you were awake for 30 hours running.
Yeah. And I maybe the one asterisk here is that for a race like that, you do quite a bit of, I would say, hiking, walking, right? So
Yeah.
I am not a professional. So I am not running the entire time.
So that could be one aspect of it is you got to pace yourself, right? Is if you're going to run 100 miles, you can't go out like a rabbit and run yourself into the ground. So what does that look like? You've got to, your normal pace would be a 6-minute mile or a 7-minute mile, and you got to intentionally dial it back. Tell me about the mindset as you start these races.
Yeah, so there's a lot to bite off when you go into it. And I think the thing for me is to just break it down into those bite-sized chunks of really compartmentalizing pieces of the race, even the parts that are beyond the running and actual movement part. You've got things like nutrition, you've got the uncontrollables like weather perhaps, or temperature, things like that. But I also go into these with the focus of not only challenging myself, but making sure that I have a lot of fun. And luckily for that race, my wife was there, my oldest son was there. We had several other racers that were there with their families and friends. And so much of the event is also focusing on investing in that part of the experience too. So from my perspective, it's about one foot in front of the other, get to the next aid station, make sure I'm enjoying it. And along the way, making sure I do system checks to make sure I've got fuel in me and that my gear is working well and stuff like that. Because a race like that, it's no doubt adversity hits at points.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So tell us a story. Tell us an adversity story. It bleeds, it leads. We got to hear some gripping testimony.
Yeah. You get a lot of them in races like this. I would actually go back to when I was in Leadville the first time I raced there in 2019. This is a funny story among my running friends and I, but we're doing that race. It's at elevation. It's a mountainous and flatlander from Indiana. So I can't train for that very well. And you go into it, fingers crossed with high hopes that your training has served you well. But we were going up over, it's called Hope Pass, the most difficult part of the race. I found myself about 15 yards off of the trail and was a little out of my senses, but I came to and my running pack was off and sitting on the ground. My hiking poles were sprawled out. It looked like a garage sale almost, but I was sitting there with a granola bar in my mouth. And I clearly hit a wall per se where fatigue, the altitude, and maybe lack of nutrition or fuel had caught up to me. But when I came to, Brian, I had heard someone say, "Hey buddy, are you okay?" And it was actually another runner in the race. And he saw me off trail and ended up assisting me further up the mountain to the next aid station, made sure I got some nutrition and perhaps saved my race, which was amazing. But I wish he would have taken a picture of me sitting there with stuff everywhere in a moment of hurt. But that was definitely a funny, interesting moment of adversity during a race that I've had.
So that's the first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, okay, so you're going up this trail. Now you're 44 miles in, so you have to get pretty scattered after a while. I would imagine there's hundreds of people that do this. But my first question was, okay, was there anybody paying attention? And when they saw you like take a detour, is there like some code of ethics or something that says, hey, if you see somebody, you gotta help them, or how does that work?
I know, right? And that in these races, and it's a very close community from the standpoint of most people are out there. We're there for the same thing. We want to challenge ourselves. We want to have fun, and you want other people to succeed along with you. And maybe that individual's thinking, hey, this guy knew a little good juju or good karma. And I don't know if that individual finished, but I sure hope they did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. All right. And so you got to New Hope Pass, 50 miles up, 50 miles back. It's what elevation is New Hope Pass?
So Hope Pass is somewhere, I think, 12,500 feet, I believe.
Okay. That's real elevation.
Yeah, especially coming from Indiana. It's hard to prepare for something like that, but yeah, a little less oxygen up there for sure.
Yeah, a lot less oxygen. So I can only tell you, and so I have a pilot's license. I haven't used it for a long time, but one of the rules I do remember is that if you're going to fly a plane above 12,500 feet for more than I think it's more than a minute. I'm rusty on the regulations. You have to have oxygen, because then you start to get loopy and you start to make bad decisions. And you don't want to do that when you're flying a plane. I can tell you that the air is really thin at 12,500, just from a pilot's perspective. So you've talked about nutrition a couple of different times. I would imagine to run 100 miles. Tell us about what's it like to have to prepare enough nutrition to run for 30 hours? What you have a backpack full of it? Are there stations? How does all that work?
Yeah, a little of both, Brian. So you want to make sure that you've got fluid on you and enough nutrition to get you to that next aid station or the next time you would see the individuals that are there crewing for you. That's your sport crew. So you'll see them at different times during the race.
Okay. Yeah.
But it is unique to each individual, and it's very much recipe that is trial by fire, and it could be fluid based. It could be real food based. It could be things like gels and stuff like that. It's about planning for that and figuring out what your body can take. But for the most part, it's thinking, hey, I can only carry so much, carry to the next time that I'm going to be at a pit stop to be able to refill per se.
Yeah. Okay. So are there any other things that I wouldn't know because I haven't done an ultra marathon, or maybe things you learned the hard way the first time you did it, however long ago? So it sounds like Hope Pass was your first one in Colorado, but there were probably others before that. What did you find out the hard way?
What did I find out the hard way? That's definitely a story. And these are races where you can prepare. And sometimes it's not in the cards for you for a race. And a lot of things you can't control. I mentioned weather. There's instances where you have a nutrition mishap that could ultimately flood your race, even though it's the same nutrition each and every time. There's aspects like that. I've had the unfortunate instances where friends and folks that I'm doing races with, you're taking a few 100,000 steps in a race like that, and it only takes one to end your race. And it could be a small root round. It could be a small rock. And sometimes you take one misstep and it can derail your race. And that's when you got to figure out, is it best for me to pack it in this race or and give it a go again? Or how much do you want to push yourself? Hopefully not to be injured long term, but in these races. And a lot of times it's how far to do it while you're hurting.
Yeah. Okay. That makes perfect sense. So it sounds like you go in, like what percentage of these races do you finish? Because it's obviously okay not to finish. To go 100 miles sounds like a lot. So if you say, okay, if I could do 5 races a year and I could finish 3, that's awesome. Or give me a little perspective on what success looks like as an ultra marathoner.
Yeah. And such a unique answer for everyone. And I typically try to hesitate talking about how maybe do 100-mile races. That's just part of what I do. It's not every race. And it's just, that's what it's culminated in for me. But for most folks, they have their A race. That might be instant. They might be going for speed rather than distance. And all of those things are incredibly commendable when I could the generality of running. Most folks are out there for very different reasons. But for me, the 100-mile distance is something that I've chose to tackle. And there's been one race that I did where I didn't finish, and the system broke down, essential failure. The body couldn't take it anymore. And I got swept off because of basically I was behind time. So there's time cutoffs and didn't make it on that one. Yeah.
Okay. And so obviously different people do things for different reasons. So 100 miles is your distance. Have you ever done a full Ironman?
Yeah. I've done a couple full Ironmans. Those are wild.
Yeah. How long does a full Ironman take?
So I think you get 17 hours to do a full Ironman. I did a couple, and I was in the maybe 10, 11 hour range when I did them.
Crazy. Okay. I don't want to do that. But then again, I'm old. All right. As I mentioned in your bio, there's a lot more to Casey Crouse than running 100 miles or ultra distance. Why don't you tell us a little bit about New Shoe Day and the inspiration behind that?
Yeah. And actually, New Shoe Day was really perhaps born, probably a good segue. But in 2020, the founding story of New Shoe Day is that myself and a group of individuals, we decided to challenge ourselves during a time where we thought the community needed kind of some positive uplift, if you will. So over 2020, we're in the midst of COVID, and there was a lot of tension in our city and honestly in our entire country for good reason, really stemming on the backs of the event with George Floyd and the unfortunate murder of there. My own cities erupted in riots and protests, and that didn't sit well with me. So I thought that it would be maybe a good use of my time, find something to do to challenge myself and also put a positive spin on it and bring community together. I didn't like how the city felt fractured. That, hey, how can our running community bring it together? So we ventured out on a challenge to run 10 miles a day for 100 straight days through new streets and neighborhoods of Indianapolis for the sole reason of connecting our city back together through running and to tell the story over social media. It was an incredibly impactful, life-changing experience for a multitude of reasons. But through that journey, Brian, we would talk to people each day on our runs. And we usually weren't even seeking it out. We're just out there on a run. There were people outside and they just say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you out on a run here? Tell us what's going on. And oftentimes these conversations would turn into 10, 15, 20-minute combos where these people would just let us know what's on their hearts and on their minds. Part of the way through that, we said, if we're having these moments with people, how can we make their day? And as runners, we would often joke around about the day we would show up with a new pair of shoes and how meaningful it was to us. So if someone showed up with a new pair of shoes, they'd say, hey, I'm here. It's a new shoe day for me. You ultimately knew that individual was there to throw down, essentially, on the run. They were feeling the good feelings of having a new pair of shoes. So they were feeling confident. It was a fresh start. Overall, just positive feelings. And so we said, runners, what if we could give folks those same feelings when we meet them? And we gave these individuals that we would meet out on these runs a figurative new shoe day. We said, hey, here's what a new shoe day means to us. And we'd love for you to have a new shoe day too. And so we actually gave people, it's funny, we gave them a water bottle. It had a nice note in it to just say nice things to them. Here's what your day means to us. We hope you get the same feelings. And then we would pull a little bit of cash for whatever they needed. Might be shoes, might not be. And as we're sharing this out, people really started to pay attention to it and they started to send us money. And at that moment we said, ooh, this is a problem. It's a good problem, but it's a problem, right? Like people are sending us money to go do more. And so we very quickly shoveled that into a GoFundMe and allowed us to the awareness of what we were doing from a standpoint of making an impact on our community. And that's what happened. So 100 days goes by, we run 1,000 miles. We gave away about 65 new shoe days, I believe. And then at the end of the experience, late summer 20, we had $5,000 left over. And we said, hey, let's give this to an organization that could use it. And we ended up giving it to a local youth after school running program. And we said, hey, here's a new shoe day for you. Use these funds for whatever it is you need to do to enhance that program. And by then I brought together this community that we called the New Shoe Day community. And then a year goes by, too many people were tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey, what are you going to do with this? What are you going to do with this? And that's when the decision was made to formalize it into a nonprofit with a focused mission. And we've been going at it 2.5 years now, and a ton of energy behind us. We're making a lot of impact in the community, and it's so much fun at this point.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I did see when I was doing my research, I saw your clip on Fox 59, the 10 miles for 100 days. And I saw a couple clips of the people that you made their day with the new shoe day, and just stories about
people, you would run through their neighborhood and they're like, why are you here? And so I love the mission behind it. We should talk more about that behind the scenes, because I have similar aspirations, at least of bridging the gap and bridging the divide, being intentional about the divide that exists. So that's awesome. I love it. Okay, so then how does the foundation measure success? Tell us about the measures for success and how you're doing from that perspective.
Yeah, so we are completely volunteer led. The folks that are leading this alongside me, we have full-time jobs. We're parents. We're spinning a lot of plates. But at this point, our mission is very focused. We provide new pairs of shoes to youth in need across Indiana to empower them to thrive. So we measure success very much in that manner. How many shipping to youth in need across about 2 to 3 dozen different partnerships with youth serving organizations. And what does that look like? So for us, in just about over 2 years, we've been able to provide about 2,000 pairs of new shoes across all of these different youth serving organizations across Indiana. And at this point, we're getting a lot of inbound interest for what we do. The feedback in terms of measuring success of what we do is we're constantly trying to hear what we're getting from our partners and those we're serving. And the feedback's been very positive so far. The things they're saying are, hey, you're solving a big problem for us. The moment we hear that, we say, oh, maybe we should throw some gas on this, more of it. Yeah. And they also say things, the other thing that comes to mind is that you make getting shoes on kids' feet easy. And so doing those two things within the capacity is ultimately how we measure where do we go next. And if we were a for-profit entity, I'm looking at it as we'd be at a stage where we're trying to see investment. But we're nonprofit. So we're trying to see donations and funding and support that way, because we pent up crazy amount of it for what we do. We have something like 3,000 new shoe days in our figurative pipeline this year to give away, but we're chasing that fundraising and the systems that come with that to try to figure out how do we meet this need that the community is coming to us with.
Yeah. Wow. All right. How much does it cost to put 3,000 pairs of shoes on a child's feet?
Yeah. So we work through various gear vendors, if you will, or gears. And luckily we get some discounts on some shoes because we're a nonprofit. The price will fluctuate based on the type of shoe we're giving out, the inventory available in warehouses across, things like that. So the price will fluctuate. We do believe in outfitting these kids with nice shoes. So we're giving them name brand Under Armour shoes. And so for us, we price point out all of this. We settle on an average when we talk to donors of, hey, $50 will get you get a youth in need a pair of shoes. And that's going to take care of the shoes. That's going to take care of the overhead that we have, mostly tied to like tech stack and some administrative type things. But we fundraise with the concept of $50 will get a youth in need a new pair of shoes through New Shoe Day.
Okay, so $500 will get you 10 pairs of shoes. All right, I can certainly personally get you 10 pairs of shoes for sure, just for them.
Oh, wow.
So that part's done. Just tell me how to get you 10 pairs of shoes. That's the easy part, and then maybe we can work together on finding ways to get more. But
thank you, Brian.
That means inspired me to. Yeah, it's what a great cause. I love it. All right, but you do other things. So how does one become a member of the Riley Children's Foundation board? I'm curious.
Yeah, there is a story there. Yeah. We'll switch gears here. But I come from a family. I have an older brother who's 6 years older than me. And then I had an older sister. Her name was Ashley, and she was 4 years older than me. When I was 17, Ashley was 21. She was a student at Indiana University, and she got involved from a leadership level in an organization called IU Dance Marathon that supported Riley Children's Foundation and Riley Children's Hospital. So for listeners who know what the Dance Marathon organization environment it is, she was an executive council member, high-level leader. She was incredible. In 2005, she was tragically killed in a car accident on campus. and formidable time of my life. I'm 17 and a lot of impact there, huge trajectory changer at that time. But when that happened, I made a commitment to essentially follow in her footsteps a little bit so that I could amplify the legacy that I thought that she deserved in the community. So I went on to IU. I got involved in the organization as well. Riley became a piece of my own life, and how I focused my time, my service, how I developed as a leader, and it ultimately led that organization in 2009. And we established a lot of different moving pieces in terms of what was associated with Ashley's legacies. That kind of propelled me into the Riley scene. It's not the most common way. And if you live in Indiana, at some point, you're going to be touched by Riley Hospital, whether it's through life-changing illness of someone in your family or someone close to you. That's the typical route. Mine was a little different. I've also had those experiences, unfortunately, too. But when I graduated IU, I did my absolute best to stay as involved and as committed to the mission of Riley moving forward, and knocked on enough doors, and just through curiosity and continuous fundraising and initiatives and being a supportive alumni, ultimately that the opportunity came up. Riley, the Dance Marathon organization in Indiana, is the single largest entity donor to Riley each year. And they saw me as a leader in the space, and they said, hey, at the board level, I think it's time we have a board that's got a lot of experience there, that's dedicated there. And I've been there for about 5 years and love every minute of it. I try to raise my hand for everything. I try to be on as many committees as I possibly can. And it's been an incredible experience to not only serve, but there's a large amount of, I'd say, highly impactful leaders on that board that I get to be in the same room with and learn from and ask questions. And that's invaluable.
Yeah. Awesome. First, I'm sorry about your sister. That's awful. At 17, I lost a sibling under much different circumstances, but yeah, it's tough. That is really hard. But you did the next best thing, right? You took you took the inspiration and the sense of loss and propelled it to something that's pretty awesome. I am very familiar with the dance marathon. I've hired a couple of dance marathon leaders in my day because we knew that if you could raise that kind of money and show that kind of dedication, that you're probably going to do a pretty good job. So that's a safe bet. So congratulations for that. I'm sure you remember how much money you raised because most all of them did.
Yeah. In 2009, I had the opportunity to be president. We raised $1.52 million that year.
Yeah.
And
that's an awesome.
they're north of 3 million, touching 4 million a year now. The organization's grown significantly and they amazing things every year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Congratulations for that. I love the persistence. You are touching, I know several members of the Riley Children's Foundation, and they're all good people for sure, and pillars in the society and in the community. So I'm sure you've enjoyed their company for sure.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it's a great experience for that.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So now another, maybe a little more graceful this time, the transition. You said something in your backgrounder that I thought was really interesting. Is when we said, okay, so what's something that you've done that's harder than it looks? Your comment was, you may not even remember this, I'll just remind you, but maybe you do. You said, I can speak to this in ways as hard, and you put it in quotes, is really a perspective and it's unique to the individual. So I'm interested to dig in on where you were coming from when you wrote that, because I think it's absolutely true. And in some ways it might actually be the quintessential reason for segment 2 to exist, because we're talking about hard things and people say that parking is hard. And of course, anybody outside of parking it's not that hard. And you're like, okay, so ultra running, that sounds hard, but there may be other things that are hard. And I just think that just by you writing that it's perspective and it's about the unique perspective of the individual, I thought you might have more to say about that, or other thoughts that would be interesting to the people that are going to be listening.
I'll start off with, I'm not sure I'm writing that in my intro form, but I it still stands true, I think. When I hear that back, what I think about is that there's such meaning in the struggle. And that can be cascaded across so many different mediums: work, fitness, family, individual pursuits. The struggle is real. And I know that's a cliche term, but it's also pretty ubiquitous. Everyone is dealing with something. Everyone is struggling with something. And there's meaning in that. And the ability to have empathy towards that when you are talking with other individuals, being curious about that, is where you can find community. That's where you can build relationships. Just the understanding that we're all going through something that's hard and that there's struggle behind it.
Yeah.
So when you can carry that perspective, not only for yourself, but I think, again, across so many different mediums, it just enhances life a little bit more. And it makes every day meaningful. It makes every instance in doing something meaningful. It does not have to be a 100-mile marathon. It could be the next email that you have to write that is maybe a hard conversation or makes a deal, or something that's more personal. Doing hard things is a unique perspective that we understand that we're all part of essentially shared suffering, if you will. We're all struggling. I just think that there's so much more meaning to that. And it also enhances the positive aspects of life too. You have to understand that it's a spectrum, and hard is all across that spectrum.
That's fantastic. What it makes me think about is, so our business is taking intercom help calls from people stuck in parking garages. And so we take 160,000 calls a month. And you can bet that a good chunk of those calls are people having really bad days and being quite upset that they can't get out of the garage for whatever reason. Their credit card isn't working or whatever. And so we have various numbers of hospitals. We've got central business. It doesn't matter. The point is that one of the things that we cherish the most is that our people can provide empathy while also following the rules. But it really is our push towards them, or we try and continuously talk about, is that person is having a bad day and they're taking it out on you because they can. And so that is one good reason just to maybe have a heart, or not take it so personally, because it's really not about you. It's just about them having an outlet for something that's probably quite challenging. So we're all going through it. We all have challenges every day. And so it's good just to be a good human in the whole process.
Yeah, well said, Brian. I can relate so much. I work in the IT managed services space. As you mentioned, our company supports something like 14,000 end users of technology, and they're reaching out to us. It's usually not to pat us on the back. You got to look at it from the standpoint of that person's going through something. This hardship might be withholding them from something that is meaningful to them. So how can you solve a problem for them so that they can get to they can get to that meaningful part of life?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. If you're having a bad day in IT or in parking, you're probably having it's probably a bad day.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Casey, I think we probably have reached the end. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that, from either ultra marathons or the Riley experience, is there anything that I haven't asked, or new shoe day, I haven't asked you that you think might be interesting for others to know about you or your organizations, or about, how you do it or what you do?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything very interesting about me personally, but the how I do it and things like that, none of this happens without the main focus of life for me, which is family. You mentioned my wife and my 3 boys. They're 5, 3, and 1 right now. And how I do this is because I have a very supportive and awesome spouse who does so much of her own. And the stage of life we're in, I don't know if that equates to the harder than it looks concept, but it's very much a part of it. She's what solves this equation, no doubt. It's messy. Yeah. There's a lot going on, but it's a ton of fun too.
Yeah. Oh, you got so much to look forward to with 3 boys. Now, I had a girl and a boy. I have a girl and a boy. They're that's 26 and 22. So we are into different kinds of fun. But oh man, it's going to be fun, and it definitely takes a team to raise kids. And when I think about the level of effort that it takes with little kids to get them through the 15, 14, 15, 16 stage, that is definitely harder than it looks. Or maybe it's not harder than it looks. It's just hard.
Yeah. I know who I'm coming to then for that stage wisdom. When we get to that stage, Brian.
Yeah. I hope we're good friends by then, truly.
Yeah.
And then you can ask away. Yeah, that would be great. All right, Casey. Hey, thank you for your time. Thanks for all of your efforts. You have done a lot, and I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate you. I appreciate getting to know you in the last 50 minutes, but I'd like to keep it going because I think there's a lot there. So I appreciate that.
Likewise, Brian. Thanks for the opportunity, and right back at you. I think the world of our conversation, appreciate it, and I think it's just the start.
Okay. With that, we'll end segment 2, and then we'll make sure we get notes in the show notes to reach Casey if somebody wants to reach out and match my donation or exceed it. So thank you all. And with that, we'll sign off on segment 2 of Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered.
Okay, that's a wrap on this episode of Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, presented by Parker Technology. Please leave us a review if you liked what you heard. Make sure you tune in next month as we continue to uncover tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. Bye for now.